Yeah, absolutely. But to start this series on Titan's Causeway, he's been starting slow up into this thing, but let's see if he can turn it up much quicker. For Team Liquid, it's MaNa.
And his opponent in the northeast, spawning as the red Vanguard player, he is LucifroN.
Yeah, Nate, as we take a look at this here, right, I think Titan's Causeway is actually a really solid map for MaNa to start with. Because yes, it's a small map. Scouts that's the thing we've been talking about, these hogs and dogs that LucifroN's been playing with, that we've seen other players playing with. It's a lot of early map control, 100%. But if you could just throw your opponent back for just a second, you can cut the trees down in the middle, and these Argent timings can actually be very, very strong. And maybe Yo Kree, we're gonna have to see exactly how MaNa decides to play this, because again, we talked about this in the break. We talked about this as we were setting this series up. MaNa is a player that has been starting slow. We've seen him lose game 1 in the best of 3. We saw him lose the first couple games in the actually, I guess he won game 1, but he didn't look great while doing so. Lost the next 2 in the best of 5s. And yeah, you have a little more wiggle room in a best of 7. You absolutely do. But it also means coming back from a 2 or 3 map deficit is still not the easiest thing.
No, absolutely not. And again, it's really just another testament to the fact that Parting is a world champion caliber player, and is someone that if you put a list, you're like, okay, which one of these guys is most likely to break under pressure? There's some players that we just don't include on that list because they are ice cold. And these game states, even looking at the start of this one, it can be so stressful to hold off this early scout aggression, giving up even one of the slimes off of the camp. We expect that LucifroN is just going to jump on this and be as optimized as possible with his pathing. Does lose one of the scouts there, though, but that Argent is getting very low. What is it worth for him to get the pick? Heal comes off of the arc ship, but it's not enough.
No way.
He is on the retreat.
I can't believe that thing survived. And yeah, okay, so scouts are very good because they do bonus damage versus light, and Argents are not light units. So you do have that one, but man, that thing got so low. The arc ship heal wasn't going to do more than just the tiniest bit of burst because, again, it's like a healing potion in Dota or something where it only lasts so long as you're not taking damage. So you get that singular burst when you only have a single Argent there. You do have to pull back up. We're fine though, right? Because we have next round. LucifroN, it's hogs and dogs. Mech Bay is on the way. And MaNa, do we have a Guardian? Oh no, MaNa's going Vectors. Huh.
Yeah, so now we're looking at something that we definitely have not seen as much, and I'm wondering if his approach here has to do with something about the light unit trade, I guess, but the Vectors are also kind of light, and that's one of the reasons why some people say that you go dogs against Vectors. So I'm curious as to what exactly the thought process here is, because I'm confused maybe for the same reason that you are, but a lot of what Vanguard is doing in this early mid-game stage kind of leans into or against that, but the scout will see it too, and he also sees the creation chamber in the middle of the map right outside of his third base area as well. So how does he react? How much does he push onto this, and can he dislodge this?
Yeah, we're gonna have to see again. These Vectors, they take bonus damage from the scouts, as you said, but also they have a lot of mobility, right? Especially if you take the speed camp, they can be very hard to catch. They can be very squirrely units. Yeah, when they blink back, they take an additional 50% bonus damage, and that does hurt. But we saw Parting eviscerate Denver in the previous build with Vectors against these units that are supposed to counter them, because if your micro is really good, you can find a lot of value. But for right now, again, you have to be so careful with these Vectors. They are paper. They do a lot of damage. They are absolutely paper. So for now, Scout's trying to get on top, and look at what MaNa's doing. Boxing out the reinforcements. Yeah, you'd love to get the healing camp. You absolutely would. But if you can catch these hedgehogs on the reinforcement path, catch these scouts on the reinforcement path, that army that LucifroN has on the health zone is the only army that he's going to get in this game.
I love the idea behind this strategy of MaNa. What we're seeing is a very dedicated, specific response to this opener. He's saying the hedgehogs are not going to be able to just run me down because I have the damage from the Vectors, but also the dogs can't run me down because the Vectors, you're 100% right. They have that little teleportability. They are susceptible after using it, but if you use it and then go behind the Argents, well, the dogs, they don't deal the bonus damage to those. So now you're in a very difficult situation of having a bunch of fully juiced up Argents inside your main, and let's not pretend like some of these tech infrastructure aren't super valuable as well. He's going to have to do something to defend. There's the Bob overcharge coming in, and a couple target fire from the Hogs is going to allow him to get a little bit of veterancy and a level up on one of them, but all vectors still alive so far. But those Bobs, they pack a punch when they're juiced.
That they do. These overcharge, we've seen overcharges win games when the armies don't, and now Scout's getting on top of these vectors. Again, we see that bonus damage. They shred the vectors, but the question is there enough on the backside? All the Scouts are dead. Eventually, this overcharge is going to tap down. Vectors move forward, blink away once they get low. Now, this last vector might fall down, but MaNa, he's got to be very happy with these traits, especially Nate. MaNa has a natural. MaNa has 2 bases mining. He has this double collection array. LucifroN's on 1 base. He's got to find some way to break out of this, because eventually more stuff, it's a truism in every RTS game. More stuff will beat less stuff.
Yeah, the 14 Bob economy, you know, he's got plenty of mining going on, but you're right, it's about the spread of the resource accumulation too. Collection arrays don't take quite as fast as a fully saturated Luminite patch, but by mining from 2 at once, he's got the timer is already started in a manner of speaking. So for LucifroN, it's about breaking this contain, and for MaNa, he's already got the forward position. He already has the primed creation chamber right outside. He has the power bank there, so he's going to continue to juice these guys up, and it's not like he'll just be fighting energyless Argents. I say that, one of them a little bit left up towards the front, and will barely be able to survive. The vector's kind of separated, but MaNa, he's paying attention.
It's so hard to make this damage stick, right? It's only 3 vectors. It's not, I guess, 4 vectors now, so it's not overwhelming vector numbers, but every damage you spend, every little bit of damage you spend on these vectors, they just blink away and go back to the healing camp. I mean, confirming the kill with these units as they blink back, as far as they do, as mobile as they are, it's pretty hard. Now, that being said, a lot of these hedgehogs are starting to get high veterancy. Well, at least some of them are. Level 2, level 3, they can run back, they can get repaired. I actually would love to see a repair turret just get built up here, keep the Scouts alive, keep these hedgehogs alive as we see some promotions going down. We do have Central Command Tier 2 Vector starting to fall down just a little bit. MaNa, though he thinks he can make this happen right now, bubble on that one low hedgehog, desperately looking for as much HP as possible, trying to stay alive here. And LucifroN, I think he's held on to this. Yes, there are more units on the way. Yes, Bobs are pulled off, but for now, that was a lot of Argents falling down, a couple of these vectors dying as well, and the chase is scary. Once you get back to the healing camp, you're safe, but up until that point, units will continue to die.
Yeah, and even just the Bobs being here to force him to target fire is one thing. 2 of the very low hedgehogs trying to escape. Vector is going to be able to get a double snipe, looking for the double veteran. See that tier 2, there's both. Tier 2, very low, gets both of them with the single vector up towards the front, is going to be able to blink towards the side, and that is it. GG.
You can go, and some of the defender's advantage is not quite gonna be there, because you do have these prime structures where you build everything you want to build out of the singular structure, but you know, the Starforge is back at home, so those vectors continue to have to rally across. It's not just everything's in my base immediately. Like, you do, the defender's advantage does still exist, and on Eyelidge Red, as we're taking a look at this, the rally is so long, Nate. It is a big map, and yeah, speed camps can do something about it, but this is a game where that hit for MaNa is probably not going to be quite as fast.
At the same time, I think it's worth pointing out, at least for the Vanguard side of things anyway, that multiple openings, if you do eventually get to that harass play, it can become a factor. But I think that an important part of what you're touching on is that even if they both tried to run across the map at each other, they'd probably still kind of hit each other somewhere in the middle still too, because they're both very in tune with this, and the aggression between the 2 of them literally started in the first seconds of the last one. We have a slight more attempt anyway on the focus towards the camps, but he's dragged that Shadow Mastiff very far away, by the way, from there. So
yeah, I think that's very fair. And again, you get set up, there are 2 ways to look at this. So we saw that Argent Vector idea, which is not how we've really been seeing really Inferno Vanguard players die in this tournament. It has been, again, about that Cabal idea, but when you have a map as small as Titan's Causeway, that can work out for you. So better question, as we get into game 2, does LucifroN, is he reading into this and saying, okay, I don't think the Cabals are coming out, maybe I can get away with a Hornet opening? Does he go and does he take advantage of just how separate the main base and the natural are, you know, go for hedgehog run bys and snipes and prisms? With this map, as you're talking about being so much bigger between the main and the natural, it does give LucifroN with this with this potential Scout Hedgehog opening, Scout Hornet, whatever he wants it to be, it does give a lot of potential for him to go and maybe punish MaNa's economy enough to force things back.
If there's one thing that we know for sure on this patch anyway, the Hornet is absolutely cracked against the Prisms. The damage is through the roof. Even before the buff, they were still pretty strong at breaking him down. But if you can squeeze that in, it is so powerful and can be so instrumental. But it is Hedgehogs following up with this. And to your point as well, as much as it's open for the harass on the Vanguard side, when you play this map control style, well, then yes, being able to swing those Hedgehogs around the opening the other way into where those Prisms are can also be devastating, since the dogs, they're not really going to be harassing those collection arrays too much. Does have a bunch of Argents kind of cornered over here by the Vision Camp, is trying not to trade the Scouts out against them, but it's a little bit sloppy. It looks like he's getting 1 or 2 of them, but he's losing most of the Scouts, so good control there by MaNa holding the wall to keep his Argents from being surrounded.
Yeah, it's funny. I look at this, I'm like, every instinct. Oh, it's gonna try to dive on. He gets an Argent. There we go. But like every instinct of an RTS player says, I got a bunch of small units. There are these much more expensive units here, and they're small, and I can get a good surround, and that means I should win this fight. Well, Scouts do so little damage to units that aren't light. That's like, yeah, you've got the surround, but you have far less HP, and you have far less damage, and that means that this is just not turning into a trade that LucifroN wants to find. And yeah, so for now, the Scouts go off. They don't really contest the creep camp all that well, and they take a bunch of damage.
That's when people talk about like, what does low time to kill even mean? It's like, well, when you have a unit that's supposed to be strong against other units, and you just get jumped by 3 or 4 of the other one, you don't just mechanically make up the difference like that. The impact of that armor, like you were saying, and that DPS becomes a little bit more pronounced with this. With just the way Stormgate in general works, and you do eventually have some of those big shot moments later on, like we see with the Archangels and Atlas, but for dogs against Argents, the fights drag out a little bit. But for LucifroN's sake, it's more about just going out and taking the camps and doing the thing that this build really gives you, which is that map control that's so hard to break.
That it is, and that's also why you add Hedgehogs. Scouts to mobilize everything, but Hedgehogs, they do a little bit of bonus damage to heavy. We're not talking like double damage like a Saber does, but they do additional +5 to heavy, right? That means that they can knock these Argents down a little bit more. You have that speed, that map control, and that's why we see the Vectors added, right? Vectors do well against the Hedgehogs. They don't take that bonus damage. And also, it's important to point out, +5 may not sound like a lot, Nate, and it's not as big as +50, but each Hedgehog fires 4 times every time it shoots all those rockets. So it actually stacks up quite a bit here. Now LucifroN with speed camps, with a couple Hedgehogs, what can he get done?
Yeah, the reload mechanic on the Hedgehog's pretty cool. The siege up right outside the base, though, feels a little premature. Yeah, goes for the shields up. It's a 90% damage reduction compared to, compared to the how it was before, where you were more or less invincible. But so there was a chance he might have been able to poke it there, but he does manage to survive the Paw Patrol. Is on its way into the main, however.
That they are. Again, we're talking about, yes, Prisms are light units, but Scouts can't really hit Prisms.
Maybe with this many, the collection array is a little bit in danger. Okay, there's the Sovereign's Watch, but that's still a lot of HP of all these dogs to chew through.
Yeah, I think, Nate, the thing we're learning here is realistically, Scouts should be able to climb on top of other Scouts and just go and be able to gnaw away at the Prisms. I think that is the play. But also, now we're seeing the Cabals out, right? So LucifroN knows what the tech path is. He knows his Argent into Cabal. Again, interesting play. We've seen a lot of Kree into Cabal play in this matchup. Argent into Cabal, maybe not quite as much. But LucifroN does have a second base. In fact, he has the double Luminite base, so he's going to mine a ton of Luminite here. And the question, really, is how do you transition? There's a biokinetics lab on the way. There's also a machine lab on the way. So likely we're going to see the upgrade for Hedgehogs gives them additional range. Maybe you can cut away from the Cabals a little bit better. Also, likely for Beryllium Claws, for Scout upgrades, unless we already have those and we missed it, if our observer could show us what the Scout upgrades are.
I don't see Beryllium Claws done yet.
Yeah, so
just clicking on them.
There we go. So no Beryllium Claws, so you can get that down, which means bonus damage against the Cabals, bonus damage versus light units by a significant margin. And if you can make that work out, maybe that's the answer to this.
Yeah, he's going for the hedgehog range first by the looks of things. We're seeing that research out of the machine lab. So that gives +4 range for the anti-air, but it also increases the hedgehog's ground attack range. So if you're one of those players and you're like, I'm trying to I want to poke the Argents off the edge at least a little bit. Maybe I can't take the full fight, but I want to use the burst damage from those 4 rockets that stack up. That's an upgrade that can become pretty useful. It's not just for the anti-air. It just in general makes the hedgehog a lot more microable, since you don't have to get as up close and personal to hit enemy units anymore.
Yeah, so I think it's important to point out as we get into this, we do have the quality of the army of our Celestial player has transitioned that much more. Yes, we added Cabals, but also we need to add Kree. Kree do a really nice job against scouts just with the splash damage, so that's something extra that LucifroN's gonna have to deal with. But oh, look at this backstab. Tries to dive in, get on top of the Cabal. Even though it's a light unit, it's actually still pretty tanky. It does take a lot to knock them down. So this army coming out of MaNa right now, well, it is very, very powerful. And Cabal Adept training, Cabal Mastery is on the way researching back at home, which means that you're gonna have that lift ability. All these power units, these hedgehogs maybe that you'd like to go and dive in, well, they just get lifted into the sky. They don't really get to take part of the fight, and just scouts in this army, they don't do quite enough.
It's a very dicey situation to be in. I'm checking as well, and I'm still seeing, okay, Beryllium Claws is almost done. So he has had it going throughout this fight. He's had the solar habitat powering it up to research it faster, but it's just about to finish, still not quite done yet. And so maybe he'll try and force it. If he thinks he needs to take the fight anyway, the overcharge is only going to last so long. So the Bobs pull back. He's starting up another sentry post in that Luminite patch and trying to get something out across the map with a little bit of a Hornet action. There's still Kree inside the main. By the way, the Bobs all pulled off the main Luminite patch. So he is just on the run. LucifroN struggling against this huge assault by MaNa with his Celestials. And look at that, the Kree right on top of the sentry post. So they're going to pop the Bobs that are trying to repair it and get inside. There is no bulwark here for the Vanguard and Beo. We are seeing MaNa show up in this tournament this weekend. Absolutely fantastic control and build order decision. LucifroN on the back foot for sure.
Dude, technically we have picture-in-picture available to us, right? That wouldn't have done enough. MaNa was attacking in stuff was happening in 3 spots at once. Attacking to the main base with a couple Kree. Totally annihilating income there. Attacking into the natural, where LucifroN also couldn't really make something happen. And the Hornet on the other side, you know what? It is doing a lot. I think it's forced the prisms away. It's damage on this collection array. Problem is, there is double.
It could kill everything.
It could kill everything
at home. It could kill everything at home. Could take out the collection array. You're worried about your arc station, but would it matter? He's still got to deal with. The base with the most money is still the one that he has, right? So he's got that to work on. And now the Kree are rolling back inside of the main. Bobs get overcharged again. Is he just going to pull back and wait for that? The overcharge does last quite a while. It's about 45 seconds. So if you're going to push it, you're going to push it. But if you're going to wait, it's going to be a while. The Kree taking that detonation in the middle of the Bobs as they hit them. So trying to get as much value out there as he can. But certain infrastructure is exposed, like this mech bay. He's got an Atlas in production. So it's worth mentioning that coming out in front of everything could be terrifying, but also the other side too. The Cabal actually locked on to that mech bay as well.
True, but that Cabal is very low. In fact, I think it's just going to go down before the debilitate is there. So if you can save this you're not going to save the Atlas. I was going to say, if you can save the Atlas, if you can get that siege up, maybe it's worth doing, because again, these Hornets are doing a lot. They have taken the main base down in its entirety. The prisms are gone. The collection array is gone too. They're going to try to see what they can get done on the left side now.
Oh, there it is.
Slam it down. Gravity flux. So one of the Hornets will fall because the Cabal is out. But, there are no prisms on these extra collection arrays. So, 2 collection arrays versus 1 base. Not horrible for LucifroN. It's not an easy game. Certainly not. But if he can get some sentry posts up, if he can get those to survive, get maybe just a repair turret in the Luminite line, game's not over.
Yeah, we just saw him salvage the machine lab, and then I think one other structure on the north side. So he's building another hedgehog. He's building another barracks. Or I think it was the biokinetics lab he might have salvaged. So he's just trying to get as many resources as he possibly can. But that's the thing, the mech bay was just right on the edge of the main, so pretty easy pickings for the Argents, and now all he can make are scouts, and that's it. So he is starting up another mech bay, but we know already that the Kree, like you mentioned, Bayo, they can deal tremendous amounts of damage to them, so the overcharge comes off once again. Bob's being pulled off the line. We have a couple of the Cabals on the south side as well being targeted by some of these Bobs. Hedgehog forced all the way into the mineral line, and when the Kree blow up on that, even with that bonus armor, even with that shields, it can still be enough to soften them up for the follow-up hits to clean them out, and MaNa just looking good. We're seeing the resilience of the overcharged Bobs holding on here, but the army units are all dead.
This is the map that has given us by far the best games that we've seen of this tournament. It's Boneyard, it's map number 3, and also this has been the map that we've seen the most turnaround series start to go the other way.
Yeah, seriously, this map has done nothing but deliver for us. I guess the comments about the lack of the speed camp are perhaps more real than we could have ever imagined, but whatever it is that plays into it, I mean, I'm just going to say it. I think having the camp next to your natural kind of encourages you to take it a little bit more, and that's maybe what helps lead us there. But the rush distance, the double vision in the middle, there's a decent amount of things to dissuade you from pushing in too much there. And just... I'll say this too. As the Vanguard, I'll come clean here and just remind everybody, Bayo, that while the strategy did not necessarily work out for him last game, you're 100% right that he invested in a hangar bay, Hornets, when, again, all the upgrades were towards mass ground, but he gets the specific tech unit, and it's not like the Hornet did nothing. He killed all the prisms, he killed the collection array, he completely wiped out the entire main base of MaNa. So that can be a very strong thing, and that can be a great tool. But if LucifroN wants to use that, he's either going to have to wait to either get it in there earlier, or maybe on a map where he can defend himself a little more easily, he does it faster. I'm not sure.
Yeah, what I want to point out, by the way, is we're talking about this, seeing how this game goes on. You're absolutely right, by the way. But look at what LucifroN's done, right? He's gone, this is a build that Albino, I think, started, and LucifroN has taken to it like a fish to water, where you overcharge your first like 4 or 5 Bobs, and you pull them on over into the heal camp, you kill the camp with it, you expand right there with the dregs of overcharge, and you go command post first. It develops your economy so much faster than you can do on any other map, and, you know, harass doesn't work as well either, because your Bobs are living in a healing camp, and that's a lot of damage per second. Early game harass does not blow them up fast enough for that.
You know, the command post positioning is one thing. I've known about the Bob overcharge, but my other favorite fun fact about this type of strategy is that if you really try and micro with it to have the same Bob get the last hits, their veterancy for the Bob is it builds 20% faster. So if you're thinking long term, you're like, well, if one of my Bobs gets leveled up early on and then I use that to build anything that matters, it's just you're just getting it a little bit more quickly for that decision you made at the start of the game. So it's another reason why I think this opener is super cool out of him. But also, as you mentioned, he's got 2 barracks and economy to support that with the biokinetics lab finishing too. We'll see a lot more units out from LucifroN this game as a result.
I think you mean a lot more scouts out of LucifroN as a result.
Unit scouts, they're the same.
Do Vanguards have other units? I mean, we need to see the Hedgehog, so I can't really make that joke right now. It's the hog and dogs meta. Now, that being said, MaNa...
I love ice cream, so that's fine.
Hey, you know, if someone wants to go and ship me a pint after this tournament's over, I'm not going to say no. But we see MaNa going for something a little bit... He's getting these Kree early on this time. He's going to have roll-up. He's going to have agency on the map. And, you know, we talked about how, you know, harassing into a health camp is a little hard. That main base still fairly exposed. Kree can run into that and cause significant havoc.
Yeah, and he can get the dogs through to see what's happening here pretty well. Looking at where the sentry post is, it affects a little bit the way that the Bobs are moving around the Luminite patch too, which to me kind of suggests that he's thought a little bit more particularly about where he would have it for this setup on this map. And I'm guessing that he's giving himself the option to wall off the natural a little bit from the Kree if it does end up being a dive or something of that sort while he continues to scout secure information. We're actually seeing the dogs used for scouting, which feels extremely bizarre at the moment. It's just a couple of them running around getting info. At the same time, that wall is it's kind of set up in the main, and for the most part, you want to just make sure that the Kree are not blowing up on the Bobs as well, so they need somewhere that they can run. And I like this, targeting that very vulnerable habitat, and then kind of just saying, all right, I'm going to back it up here. And good control from LucifroN. None of the Kree die, but he doesn't really lose anything in turn, just a bit of his economy, a bit of mining time.
I mean, important to point out, as like last patch, 2 patches ago, that would not have been the case. Creed no longer have bonus armor when they're rolling around, so they actually take damage. You can actually stop them. But MaNa is now on tier 2. He does have that ability to go and instantly take these hard to take creep camps on the map, develop his economy that way. Now, where does he go from this tier 2? Is it just for Purify? Is it just for the Rapture? I don't know. Does he have tech? I don't know exactly where he goes from the tech here, right? We've seen some Saber ideas. He tried that versus Nina. Didn't work out all that well, but you're excited about something, Nate. What are we looking at?
He goes straight for the V5 rocket launcher, so that's his first claim. He doesn't want a Luminite patch. He doesn't want to take a corner. I mean, I guess he already has a corner Ethereum patch, but he uses that to secure the siege tower. And is he planning to bring everything with this siege? Is a question that I kind of have. But it looks like it's taken a bit of a long way around too. So he's going to take his time. That rocket launcher's got a long rush distance to go.
Yeah, I do appreciate, by the way. So the rocket launcher just aggroes on like the closest enemy unit. So because LucifroN has a couple scouts in the main base right now, the rocket launcher's like, I'm gonna go.
I must protect the base. I must protect the natural. Actually, I mean, if you could box it in there and just keep it, right? Why not?
Great defensive turret. I mean, and now Hornets are out, right? This is a problem. So yeah, we have the V5, and it just goes everywhere, realistically everywhere, but where MaNa wants it to go. And this means this Hornet, unfettered on the map, gets
Filthy.
2 prisms, and you return to hangar after this, right? Once you take enough damage, a run back home, it restarts. This is exactly what LucifroN was looking for.
These Hornets are just so savage. They got a buff that essentially doubled their damage against the prisms in the last update. They are absolute Giga Chads. 5 HP, by the way, on that. And then return to hangar bay. That just makes it zoom home super fast. It will fly over the map, so you kind of want to make sure you're not going over the middle. You can, of course, grab the heals that are on the field as well. And a little bit of level up, actually. I think it's just one promote will move... We'll move the Hornet into tier 1 veterancy, so it's not that expensive to get them juiced up either, and they attack faster as they level up, so that's their bonus, and it becomes even harder to deal with them. Snipes 2 more prisms out of the main base, going for a third on the Therium, and there's a huge counterattack of Kree in the natural of LucifroN.
Yeah, we got to pay attention to that one, because while the Hornets are going down, the Sovereign's Watch is knocking that, but as long as this turret stays alive, as long as their repair is good, and again, health camp plus overcharge means it's very hard for these mobs to go down. It's looking pretty good for LucifroN overall. He got a lot of damage done here. The Lancers serving as this wall on the front line. They do a little bit of splash in the front. You hew them away. Once they start to get fast, once they take that damage, we got a Hornet in the sky. And these Kree are tanky. Absolutely they are, but they're starting to go down. The mass repair on the Bobs, on the overcharge. They're just forming a wall.
He's just got auto repair. I love it. Auto repair, let them sit there, overcharged, healing each other. I mean, that's just a really smart heads up way to use it. And he manages to push him back. We're talking about the economic wind has been taken out of the sails. I think if you're a Celestial player on the ladder, this maybe is a little more with what you're familiar with against Vanguard, because when you get hit with the Hornets, that is just brutal. He has very little to work with aside from this. By the way, that rocket launcher finally made it with the next wave from MaNa. So if you guys were wondering where the siege camp was, he has finally arrived, and yeah, he's working on a barrack, so he's okay. We'll keep you updated.
He's working on it, 7 years later, or whatever it is. I have a horrible SpongeBob narrator voice. That's fine.
I think the voice is supposed to be horrible, so you're right. You're right there. Don't worry.
Thank you, Nate.
I can't do French either if it makes you feel better.
Thank you for telling me that my voice is horrible. I mean, we're going.
Luca di Supply, is that what I say now? But it's Stormgate, so that doesn't actually mean anything in this matchup either.
And I mean, this pressure from our Celestial player is starting to get a little bit more legs. The Bob overcharge not really there. The rocket launch shots are starting to get a little bit more. LucifroN, I think eventually, yeah, now he's got some Exos on the field as well. Does he have quick draw hustle? I'm not totally sure. No, he doesn't. But just the Exos here, bonus damage versus heavy. Lancers are going to clean the rest of this up. And LucifroN, with his quick expand build, getting into the Hornets, really messing with his V5 rocket launcher timing. He's going to be able to sweep MaNa from the map. It is 80 supply to 17, and we have an answer.
I'm excited to see if we get that big eco game again out of our Vanguard, or if he thinks he can get more aggressive again, if that's what he's going to try to do, since obviously there's no camp next to the natural he's going to be pulling for in the same way he would have last game either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've been blessed in Lost Hope, at least today in this tournament. Because again, we talk about this a lot. It's a little bit of a coin flip if you spawn vertically. Who's closer to the speed camp? Certainly the Vanguard player is the Vanguard player closer to the speed camp. But it's cross spawn. Northeast, southwest. Yes, speed camps are a problem that you do have to interact with, that you do have to handle. But at the very least, early on into this game, is LucifroN going for a quick expand? We're at 350 Luminite, and there's no barracks on the way.
I was gonna say, I don't think the camp's close enough to do the Bob pull for that. But yeah, he's just gonna do a traditional command post first. And if you think about it, you run into some limits in terms of building Bobs consistently. You try to go up into your tier 2. The money gets pretty tight. They do build, at a relatively decent pace, so they can feel kind of expensive. And I think this is why Vanguard players really love that command post opening, just because it solves the hardest thing, which is if you don't go for the fast expand, then getting it later still feels kind of rough, because it's a big payment, and taking that 400 Luminite out of production structures you already have can feel really painful. So just get it out of the way, set yourself up, and then kind of leapfrog with that economy forward. And it worked very well for him on that last map. So not surprised to see him do it here again. It's cross spawn. Lost Hope, I think the kind of ideal situation for this type of strategy.
Yeah, I wonder how much. So the scout gets across the map very fast. LucifroN, really, you only have to scout vertically to know that your opponent is cross spawn or not, because again, horizontal spawn is not a thing. You cannot spawn upper right and upper left, for example. So he knows, he sends the scout down, and I wasn't paying attention to the timings, but I wonder whether this was a kind of a game time decision from LucifroN, where he's like, okay, if we're vertical spawn, I gotta go with a barracks. I gotta really play for this speed camp. But now that I know that we're horizontal, I can save a little bit of money. I'm gonna go for an expand build. I'm gonna try to get that macro play going, and we're gonna go from there. So I wasn't paying attention to the timing, but I would not be surprised if that was kind of LucifroN's approach to this game number 4.
It just makes sense because of we already got to see the impact of it on the previous map, but on this one I feel like it just gets a little harder, because this map really gives a lot of strength to air units, even though we don't typically see as much of those. Maybe the early game revolves around a lot taking the camps. That's going to be with your lower tier units. Those are all mostly going to be ground units, so it kind of blends together. It makes sense, but it's like why Parting went for the Seraphim build here, because on this map he recognizes, like, well, if I can get around the edges, avoid the vision in the middle, and take camps, then that's a huge key to success for me. So if we see him play a little on the defensive side, use the hogs and the dogs or whatever it is going to be to defend, and then move into those hornets again, it's something I like to see, because it's the only thing that's worked for him so far. He is still down 2-1, no matter how good we know LucifroN is. And MaNa, he's not just going to sit here and be like, all right, yeah, I'll just let you do that to me again, no problem. I'm not going Kree against somebody who hornet rushes me.
Yeah, what I want to take a look at, by the way, is what we're seeing coming out of LucifroN. He's building exos here. He's rushing, I'm assuming, I haven't had a chance to see anything out of the biolab just yet, but he's rushing quick draw hustle eventually. Like, he's getting these units, these bonus damage versus heavy. So this this Argent timing that MaNa wants to go for, right? With all these Argents that are heavy units, that are ranged units, running into a flat cannon, running into a bunch of exos on top. It's not gonna be the easiest defense. And yes, we are seeing MaNa push across the map here. We are seeing this cascade field from the arc ship run across, more morph cores, more power banks. He's committing to this off to 2 bases. But if you add a bunch of exos, and again, I don't see a Guardian Nexus on MaNa's side of the map. I don't see anything that is a really good answer to all these exos. It seems like LucifroN in this game number 4 has built himself a pretty nice build order advantage.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we talk about how it's nice that, yeah, okay, he doesn't have the map control, but this becomes a huge moment. He's actually going straight for that turret. He actually does take it down, and you talk about how there's no bonus damage against the exos for the Argents. If they have the energy, it can still be a little bit more, but he's content to pull all the bobs off right now. I mean, if we had an income graph, we're maybe in a year we'll see that. That's the plummet moment for LucifroN. Half of his entire economy comes off for the defense. The overcharge, the energy is spent. Now he can go back to reproducing. He rebuilds the turret. But for MaNa, even if he can't really kill stuff here, he can at least try and trade. And the Morph Core opens up the side path. And he's saying, well, you've got your defensive bulwark there, but what do you have in your main base?
Yeah, and this is actually a big scout from LucifroN. Sends a scout on over to where his opponent's army should be. Realizes that there's nothing there. Importantly, though, much more importantly, as we see MaNa, by the way, turns off autocast on all of those big shots, so he's going to kill the habitat, not waste energy doing so. Big problem right now for LucifroN, there's no overcharge. Bob overcharge is very, very strong, 100%. But it does not, you don't have it for every single fight. And also, LucifroN doesn't quite have the money to get a quick draw hustle on the way either. So these Exos are good, but they're not going to kite for forever. They're not going to be those speedy boys that we're so used to seeing, and that just means Argents dive on top of this. Exos are strong, sure. Overcharge is there now, but so many of these Exos are just dead. There's nothing here.
He's just got so many Argents, and those sentry posts take so much. And we're talking again about the number of Bobs that are being pulled. So economically, what LucifroN is giving up to hold this off is part of what balances out what MaNa is tossing into this. Those Bobs, there's no passive income here when you take your workers off the line. So you need to make sure you're balancing that out. He's still got about, well, the natural is still going, so his production is able to continue to run, but the time that it takes, even with, what is this, like 6 or 7 overcharge Bobs getting the post up, it still takes a little bit. So the Argents are able to find a couple snipes in between.
Yeah, and despite this, the supplies are actually relatively equal, all things considered. Again, supplies don't necessarily tell the story. Income supply is not as a big portion of a celestial supply, say, for a Vanguard is. So that is important to point out. There are a lot more workers in the supply for LucifroN right now. Overcharge, Bob's just they're not even going to bother to repair. The burst from these Argents way too strong at the moment, far too many of them, but they're going to pull off. They're going to force things back. And again, I'm just looking at this timing. If LucifroN can squeak some room to go and get quick draw hustle going, right, to start to get that additional attack speed, additional move speed, and just make this exo ball start to be that much more effective, it feels like that's the eventual solution, but I mean, getting there, it feels nigh impossible.
Yeah, he's trying to rebuild the habitat next to the biokinetics lab, but it's so exposed. I feel like the moment you see it researching, that's when he knows he'll just click on it and kill it. So comes out with the spread. He's going to take down both turrets while they're distracted by the Kree and the natural that actually go over, and the Bobs are able to avoid it, but he pulls the whole army away, gets himself another turret. And I guess now my question becomes, Beo, what does overextending even look like for MaNa? Is this truly a position he can hold up while all the camps are respawning, or is maybe it's time for him to go kind of curate the map and grab that money?
Yeah, I think overextending in this case is not expanding. And I guess technically MaNa has expanded. He's taken LucifroN's 4th base with a couple prisms, so is getting a little bit more money there. He's adding prisms elsewhere. So yeah, he committed to this. He put a lot of pressure on the map. I think at this point we can say that LucifroN has mostly held. It's still a little dicey. There are Kree on the field. There is damage. He's lost money from having to pull the Bobs. But he's mostly held, right? And MaNa's backing up. He's mining for more. I would like to see LucifroN right now try to go and clear off some of these structures, these power banks that exist, that go in and, again, empower a lot of these attacks. But it's scary to move on the map right now. You have no tank. Not really. You really have no tank for these Kree as they dive in. Exos, they do have quick draw hustle done very soon, but not a lot of Lancers on the field right now. You have to be very careful. So MaNa still owns the map. But what I'm looking at,
there's a Bob that just died in the middle. He's trying to see what's going on, anything.
Yeah, my question is, does LucifroN have a timing a minute from now where he has enough army and enough tech in his army where he can go and start to really push this back?
Yeah, because either LucifroN is going to break out at some point with what appears to be mostly Exos. A hangar bay is starting, so that could be his ace in the hole to try and pull MaNa back. But yeah, I'm with you here, because I feel like MaNa has more or less done everything that he needs to. So again, that's why I'm like, what does the overextension look like? I think taking all the camps out on the map is the smartest thing that he could have done in that position, since really his only other option is force the game to be over, which I still feel like gets a little more dangerous with every passing second. So was the old... This is my favorite Mario streamer once said, was when you're ahead, try to get more ahead than you previously were. So I try to, I have that one above my bed, actually.
I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole, Nate.
I wouldn't either.
But anyways, yeah, no, you're right. You can go and try to end the game, but I mean, this wall that LucifroN has now, he's got multiple barracks in his natural, turrets behind, sentry or habitats, sentry posts. It's a difficult thing to break. So yeah, just take the map. Why not now? Again, there's a Hornet on the map now. So MaNa,
this is the decision too. What do you think about the decision to go straight for the Therium camp with the Hornet? Like, I don't know if he scouted it immediately, but that's your reveal in a way too, right? So it's another one of those things that's like, yeah, I can go clear the camps with the Hornet, but now I'm also broadcasting to MaNa, hey, this is coming. You've got a little bit of time to deal with it though, because I'm going for your camps first.
Yeah, I think it's also important to point out that on Lost Hope, yeah, getting a fourth base can be difficult, but you have this pocket third, and LucifroN doesn't have to really expose himself on the map to go from 2 bases to 3. And even as we talk about this Hornet showing up, there are some link nodes on the field, man. Debilitate, gravity flux as well. There's a bubble, but I mean, this Hornet is not doing much of it.
I cannot tell you how it feels. The absolute butt clenching horror of having, again, something like a full evac or a helicarrier. It does get sniped, by the way. The Argents kill it in the middle of the map, so it does not make its way back. But that feeling of you get grounded by the Cabal, and then there's like 3 of them, and it just happens once or twice where you use your shield up and it just can't die. So you're like, we're all just watching this thing stuck on the ground, waiting to see if it gets up and flies away. It did not. Well, it did fly away, but it didn't get away.
You know, agreement. Winston Churchill, I believe, once said, you know, arguing with certain type of people is like, you know, wrestling with pigs in the mud. At a certain point, you start to realize that they enjoy it, and I think that's kind of the case of that Hornet right there. You know, it's like, ah, hey, you know, we're having a good time. We're wallowing in the mud together. Although, you know, dying to the Argents ruins that analogy.
If you promote a Hornet and it dies, but it kills 5 prisms, is it a loss? Is it a bad trade? You know, these are the questions we'll probably have better answers to again in a year. But today we watch it, and I'm not so sure it's too bad either. So I feel you, Beo. He's getting value out of them, even if they're not his main army composition.
No, and you don't want to build more than like maybe 4, unless of course this is a Scythe transition later on, and then Hornets are by far the best possible thing that you can get. They just,
yeah, they're incredible.
They shred you. Like 4 Hornets kill an infinity size almost. It's not quite, but again, they don't take a lot of bonus damage. They shred. It works out fairly nice for them. So you got a couple. It's prism sniping. Now the big deal that Vortex or that LucifroN has to figure out and is not aware of is that MaNa has 5 prisms on his 4th base. That is the easy victim.
That's the best place to keep him, where he's not looking at his own base. I mean, he might as well set up shop here, drop a couple more creation chambers, YOLO. He's got the whole army in the main, and well, this setup from LucifroN is like, I absolutely can never leave my base, ever at all. The Atlas is a part of the fight, though. Now, if he can get a good juicy target in the middle, actually does get a shot in all of the Argents, and there's that big purification beam coming down, but the Atlas is hanging in there.
Yeah, that Atlas does. He would have loved to go get damage on this Animancer as well, but those Atlas shots were shredding things. Argent's taking so much damage, Kree as well. And now Exos, they're going to have to wait a second. The Kree have to explode. But eventually, you're going to be able to run through that. This Animancer, if you can dive on top of them, and again, quick draw hustle, Exos are so very fast. Flick coming in from the left side, though, drops it down on top of everything. And MaNa, he laid the bait down. LucifroN absolutely fought right back into it. And eventually, an Atlas is going to go kill these Animancers, but it's not quick. The army of LucifroN gets evaporated by the Animancer flank, and I don't think there's a lot he can do at this point. We have the Biolab down, no more X's on the game.
I'm going to mention something you brought up last game, but you're talking about, yeah, if he goes into sites, etc. 100%, especially on this patch, if the game is boiling down to mass air units, Hornets kill everything, okay? They kill everything. If you're worried about something like Shadow Flyers, get the air mine upgrade and then just leave those. They last forever now. They got rid of the time duration on them. Just drop them all over the corners of the map. There's all sorts of horrible stuff you can do. You can even drop that mine with your Hornet next to prisms. It'll blow up on those too if you're in a 3-hour game, okay? I got you covered. I got the facts for you. So those Hornets against Celestial, I agree. They're incredible. The only thing you really want to watch out for, of course, is getting overwhelmed by the Argents on the ground, since the Hornets are not cheap investments to get to either.
Yeah, and as we talk about this map, the other powerful thing is the fact that you get Morph Cores, you can almost like, you take half the build time off a creation chamber. So what we really commonly see, and we're talking about, oh, maybe you can go 1 base Hornets. If you run a Morph Core just barely north of where the bone shards are, that middle of the map area, you put a creation chamber right on the other side, and that long by ground, short by air just kind of disappears. Looks like MaNa for now, though. Not going to go for that. In fact, he's got his natural going down. Creation chamber here, going to play that much more standard, a little more, I guess, macro play. And LucifroN, again, it's going to be a command post first. He thinks that this is the best way to play against MaNa. It certainly worked out for him in game number 3, and almost maybe, worked out for him in game 4. but can he withstand the pressure now? Because MaNa is eventually going to realize what's happening.
Yeah, he's if anything, MaNa is not the player that we are worried about struggling to figure out a solution to a problem. He's got a big brain. He's applying it liberally in these series, and it is fun to see. On the other side of things, out of Vortex, or sorry, LucifroN, got him on the mind now. I've got both of them on the mind now. The fast command post, you like to see it. I thought this early game interaction was kind of interesting too. He's been messing with him, kind of denying the heal camp, but the start of it, those two creeps sometimes get delayed, and he's been able to delay or even steal that slime at the start. And I just wanted to point out, MaNa was able to cleanly get both of those at the end, which sometimes that camp takes a while to take because you can't really take it after you use the first Sovereign's Watch if you don't clear it with that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's been I've seen a lot of discourse about camps. On the one hand, it's like, camps are worth too much money. And other people are like, well, look, killing a slime is only 20 Illuminite. Doesn't matter. It's like, well, yeah, if you
20 bucks, 20 bucks, man.
If I find 20 bucks on the ground, I'm picking that up. I'm getting myself an ice cream sandwich. Actually, more than one ice cream sandwich. Inflation's bad, Nate, but it's not that bad. It's nice snipe there on the Argent. But also, if you get it and your opponent doesn't, that's a worker, right? Well, prisms are different, but for the other two factions, that's almost a worker. It's 40 Illuminite. You do that a couple times, it's a ton of money on the map. Jacking creeps can matter quite a bit. And now trying to get the vision camp here, trying to punish the Argent, gets a second one, and I think, oh yeah, he got the promotion. He got the vision camp as well. He at least got one of those creeps. LucifroN.
That one Argent not even doing anything. He was kind of just running against the wall. Yeah, LucifroN with a huge pickup here on the tower, and playing for these camps. I mean, this is the kind of interaction you talk about. Maybe in another game, both players are still macroing because there's not too much that can really happen yet, but they both really want to take these camps. There's a lot less on this map than there are on almost all of the others, which in a way makes them that much more important.
That it is. So yeah, LucifroN, he's kind of going nutty, leveling up in this game, but the pressure's starting, dude. We've seen this Argent build. You get 3 creation chambers, you do it on 2 bases. And can LucifroN hold? There is now this flak turret, and it's only 3 Argents, so the damage difference is actually pretty good for LucifroN right now. He's able to go get damage done on the Argents. They're not able to burst that down. Scouts on the other side actually able to go and claim that healing camp back. It's a pretty significant deal having both the active, which MaNa is destined to get. I don't think that's going to be something that LucifroN can really contest all that easily, but denying at least some of that passive regen is pretty useful. If LucifroN can hold on to it for right now, it seems like MaNa is able to reclaim. But also, other way to talk about that, he had to move the Prime back home, which meant that a couple Argents that could be used in this attack, and now they have to walk the long way around, and it does slow things down just a bit. But right now, the habitat will fall, Nate, and it's the turret that has to stay alive here. You got to get some of these Argents down early.
And look at that bear repair too, down to about less than 10% HP on the flak cannon. So the commitment to bring it down so close and yet so far. As far as other interesting things in this game are concerned, by the way, the prisms are in fact mining LucifroN's resources again, sort of. I think he's now kind of moving them over. Oh, he's going to go get the Therium outside of there. So
yeah, I think this is a much better defense from LucifroN, though. As we take a look at this, he didn't go get his first tower burst down. And also, remember, on Jagged Maw, there's only one access point to the main of the natural. This is not, there's no way you can go and take a couple trees down and try to take advantage of a position where, your opponent's not ready and there are no turrets and you got to spread your defense out that much more. No, there's only one spot, so that means LucifroN can be a little greedier in what structures he builds, his static defense, and that also means that quick draw hustle is going to be coming out on the map so much faster. And when you get that, certainly if Kree on the map, Nate, chasing down these Argents, being able to move that much faster, do that much more damage, works out pretty nicely for you. And man, LucifroN's been so good at sniping all these Argents with these scouts. He's going to get another one.
His micro has been fantastic. I think we've seen a lot of really good decisions from MaNa on using the maps and the way that he uses these builds to just put crazy amounts of pressure on him to force those mistakes. But for a player that has been boxed in as much as LucifroN has, he's done a remarkable job of keeping his cool. And while quick draw hustle is going to be faster, this is not a game where he has squeezed out that hangar bay either. So his commitment to this fight on the ground and whatever he's about to make happen is going to be extremely important for the rest of the game. As if this fails and he finds himself still contained on the ground, it just gets more difficult. But we know the Exos, well, they're pretty good units, Beo.
Yeah, you know, as an Inferno player, I have many complaints about the EXO. Again, we're seeing they're good, but maybe not quite as excellent as against Celestials right now. But now LucifroN, he realizes he got this time. He's going to just move right on top. 4 HP per second, be damned. It doesn't matter. All of these Argents are going to fall down. He's going to reclaim the healing camp. And yes, there are Vectors on the way. Double Starforge on the other side of the map for MaNa. But all the Argents are dead. There's nothing to tank for these Vectors. And if LucifroN wants to go clear this position up down below, the 2 Vectors are not going to stop him.
You know, I think if you're LucifroN, that was everything. That had to be everything that you were hoping for out of that, because you now have the capability to do what you couldn't do last game, which is actually clear out what's been spread around your base. 2 Starforges that's a pretty hefty investment, and what they're capable of producing is worth quite a bit too. So the Vector popping out and potentially getting sniped, maybe we're not as worried about that. They're quite mobile, but the infrastructure for them, it still matters. It's not like these Vectors suddenly aren't a part of what his original strategy was anymore.
On top of that as well, remember, so these trees that we see that we're going to see him go through right now, those trees, you know, big units, they can't go through, but Exos, Lancers, Scouts, they love to run right through, which means this mining area that MaNa's had set up, a lot of these prisms are going to get sniped down. Quick Draw Hustle goes. He should lose the Arc Ship as well. Realistically, bonus damage versus heavy. The one thing that's this prism's in the main base off into a corner. Yeah, this is my base now. It's fine. The one thing that stops him though is a bunch of Argents and Vectors diving into the natural. Maybe that forces LucifroN back. But the other scary part about that is this army on the map. MaNa, if he overstays his welcome, he gets surrounded. He loses everything.
He's mining his main Luminite.
What? No, he's mining that's not allowed. That's illegal.
What is? Get on out of here, Scoot. Go on, get. So I don't really know how he tackles. I think the Exo Ball is still going to be a question mark. He's getting more creation chambers up, but all of the infrastructure was more or less just out on the map. So can he get enough out in time to deal with an assault by LucifroN? The supply tells a rough story. Even the power kind of tells a pretty even / rough story. All the prisms, the Arc Station. This is a catastrophic loss.
Yeah, well, not only of the Arc Station 8, but also of MaNa's game here. This early aggression, and this is the story of this tournament. Early aggression dominates ladder. Early aggression dominates early games in a best of 3, a best of 5, a best of 7. But these players are some of the best Stormgate players, some of the best RTS players in the world. And you give them 7 games, they're going to start to do some problem solving. Now, this blast node is also solving a lot of problems right now. LucifroN has to just tap that down before more shots go down. He will be able to do so. And again, more supply will absolutely take down less supply here.
I feel like this one will end up being remembered as one of the classics of the standards. And some maps will probably remember it in more memey ways, like Jag and Maw will be a joke, or Isle of Dread, where people will be like, yeah, I used to dread playing on that, haha. But there'll probably be like some Neo Broken Crown version that we'll see down the line, because it feels like we do get some pretty interesting matches here, and it's been played for a super long time. But Dog trying to block the Morph Core from taking that first collection array. You can't really block it for that long, but he is literally being as annoying as he can be right there. So
yeah, and the good part about this map as well is there are a bunch of healing fruits on the map. So yeah, Dog takes damage. Dog goes and becomes a gardener for a little bit, gets a little hungry, gets a, I don't know, pear or I don't know, whatever's tasty, heals himself right back up. And that means that as more scouts start to arrive, what is this Morph Core doing on the other side of the map? It's going to try to shut down this natural now with an overcharge. These mobs will not die. MaNa now knows what's happening. He has a good idea. And we've seen 2 games in a row now, actually 3 games in a row now, where LucifroN goes for this quick expand build. MaNa hasn't really been able to punish it all that well. He kind of did on Lost Hope, but again, that's Lost Hope. Now MaNa knows exactly what's happening. How does he look to punish this one?
It's a good question. Morph Core coming back over. The Scout is just kind of following him. It's like, are you trying to place something outside my base? What's the plan here? He wants to, of course, deny the area for it to land, but he wants to see it the moment it starts too. And there it is, the creation chamber, right across the canyon, I suppose, from the natural. And he is presumably committing to something aggressive with this, Beo, or?
Yeah, this is actually really interesting, because as we take a look at this, this is literally the first creation chamber on the map. There's nothing back at home. This is the only production structure on the map for MaNa right now. And look, Nate, look at what he's doing. He's faking this. This is not aggressive at all. He's pretending like he's trying to get super aggressive against LucifroN to punish this. And yeah, he's building an Argent. This is a quick third creation or third collection array. He's selling a story to LucifroN that does not exist. And I don't know if LucifroN's going to know enough. No, he does. Actually, yeah, he saw the main and the natural. He's got scouts there. He knows that there is no production on MaNa's side of the map. So this, yeah, you got to make a turret, sure. But this should not, the story that MaNa is trying to tell doesn't really seem to exist.
Yeah, I love the concept of it, especially when you see that the scout is being very attentive to your morph core. Like, you know that he's thinking about it. So you kind of give him a little bit of that taste and get him to react. But at the same time, if he ends up losing anything over here, he'd probably end up feeling really rough about it as well. He can still siege from the low ground, even with the sentry post on the right side. This is a pretty common thing to see on this map in general. If in any matchup, really, if you can get underneath this Lumini patch, most range units can hit up there a little bit. So not surprised to see this, but he's like, you're kind of faking me out, but then you're not really. But then he actually does have 3 collection arrays, but also he's building turrets underneath your natural mineral, Luminite patch. So what exactly is the play here? The Argents are in position, and however comfortable he was feeling, his response is not ready yet.
You can take the player off the Protoss, Nate, but you can't take the Protoss off the player. It's a good old, maybe not cannon rush, but yeah, close enough. Strike node rush coming out of MaNa in this game number 6. He's having his cake and eating it too. Triple collection array and this pressure low ground into high ground. LucifroN, he does have X's on the field. He's got this flat cannon, but the link node, first one's done, second one's going to be done soon. It's getting surged as well, which means it's doing that much more damage. And I mean, what's LucifroN supposed to do here? He's got these Exos, but fighting these strike nodes, even if they're heavy, you don't have a critical mass.
No, it's brutal too. The poke on the bobs, even just trying to barely mine that range. He's got it perfectly calculated. The radius matches up beautifully. The defensive turret offers very little value, and he can't mine either way. But he'll turn off the auto charge on the energy for the Argents and just poke the command post. And even with this little bit of micro, he's gonna try and focus down. Gets one of the Exos, steps back, gets another one of the scouts. And you building prisms. You building prisms inside your opponent's base right now, MaNa. Are we doing this again? Don't mind from that one.
No,
that Luminite patch is very secure, I think. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got 2 flat cannons. I think that is probably enough. And so man, this build is disgusting. MaNa, this is very clearly a map-specific build, but good news for LucifroN. This Exo turret has a range on the near strike node. So he's got range on both strike nodes. So this is a lot of damage. Absolutely. It is putting a ton of pressure on LucifroN, but there's no way to heal these strike nodes. MaNa is going to get forced back here. Reminder, he only has 1 creation chamber unless he's built another. Yeah, he's got 4 more on the way. But for the time being, he has been forced back. And these Exos are here, double flat cannon. But what I'm worried about, Nate, is that Guardian Nexus on the other side of the map. Kree are on the menu. Sure, Exos handle Argents very nicely. Kree kind of run right over him.
Yeah, they just sort of roll up on him. It can be quite sudden, can be quite terrifying. It's a good answer from MaNa, and he's done a pretty decent job, I think, in almost every game. Really the last one, you could see with the double Starforge that the vector transition was probably for those Exos, but the timing of it just did not work out because LucifroN didn't try to do anything other than just get what he needed to go out and clear stuff. But we're not on Jagged Maw, and while yes, that first creation chamber was built there, it is not all of his production outside of LucifroN's base either. So, it's quite tough when you lose the fight, and then you've got like 5 production structures that all get destroyed with it. But when he hasn't even killed the one, it's a little more playable.
Yeah, but man, I'm scared. I'm really scared for LucifroN right now. He feels like he has to be on the map, reclaim some of this position. Knock down this creation chamber, as you said, get some creep camps, but there's this time bomb. Kree are gonna be here. I mean, the Kree now roll up is done. You're building out of 3 creation chambers, and benefit of Celestials is even as that creation chamber goes down, it was able to go and build units back at home for just a little bit. So, eventually it's taken down. It's only 3 creation chamber versus 4, but MaNa's able to get value of it really up until the last second that it goes down. So this timing is very scary that MaNa's getting hit in just a little bit. And LucifroN, I mean, I think realistically, just wall off your natural, build these buzzsaw turrets, play at home. You're going to be on 2 bases. You'd rather be on 3, absolutely. But just play at 2 bases right now. Let MaNa crash into you like 1 more time. And if you can hold that one, that's when you start to explode on the map a little more. And that's when you move across. But this timing for MaNa, it looks like it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, he's got a lot set up here. We see mostly, again, like you were saying, it's just the Exos is getting a couple of the additional answers. Hangar Bay is coming online, so I think one of the reasons why that style or the use of the Hornets is so nice is specifically when you feel like you're kind of in this situation where you don't want to move out and extend yourself, especially if you're worried about Kree getting onto the Exos. So you give them something that they kind of have to react to. And as I say that, I'm looking at this Illuminite mine outside the natural by the speed camp, where he's just got 4 prisms, just absolutely going ham. So for MaNa, he's just one of those players that long term in the history of Stormgate, he'll be remembered as he never mined out Illuminite patch. Yeah, he never put more than a single prism on his main, and he just went and took all the other ones in the middle. And I think we're learning some pretty creative ways to run an economy for Celestial too.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, right? Celestials play differently than any other Blizzard style or RTS faction that we've really ever seen. They don't, I mean, yes, MaNa does have a main base right now. He's going and he actually is building this like a main, but conceptually they don't have a main base. Wherever they are is their main base. Are they gonna get that Hornet? Yeah, they're gonna force it out. Promote keeps it alive, but now MaNa knows what's up. And again, you're right, because run away from the Cabals. That's not what you want. That is not a good position to be in. And because MaNa has these prisms in weird spots, even as the Hornets go and they get damage done potentially and force MaNa to be sad and take economic damage done, he's not going to get the majority of the prisms. They're on weird spots on the map, and that is as powerful as just denying LucifroN on the scouting on how much economy actually exists. It also just keeps him safe from these Hornets.
Yeah, again, it's just so bizarre because we've just got these units flying around that wreck prisms. But even if he makes it into the base, there's a decent amount in the natural and the main. We're not pretending like there's nothing, but it's just been very funny that MaNa's way of answering it has been to simply spread his prisms all throughout the map because the Hornets just can't be everywhere. And yeah, you make one, it flies in and blows up. That's kind of how it's going to go. One is going in on the left side, but that's it. It's just a naked collection array. Nothing else to really jump on. He could spend a bunch of time trying to kill it. There's one prism here on the main Luminite patch, but that's exactly what we were talking about is, yeah, he'll get that, but the 4 across the map, they're not here for a reason, and it kind of works to MaNa's advantage again to be a little cheeky in that way.
Yeah, I mean, you see, again, the Cabals, they just shut this down. You debilitate it. It's a 40-second slow nade. It is so hard to deal with, but now here's the attack coming in for MaNa, and this Hornet was debilitated. Yes, takes less damage, is slow, absolutely, but now a Sovereign's Watch does have to get spent. Importantly, though, MaNa on the other side of the map, he's got a lot of his army going to try to attack into this, but this defensive setup from LucifroN, I don't know if it's better. It's 100 supply better, but it is going to be very difficult to attack into with these Atlas positionings, with this concave that he has set up. But this Atlas is actually very exposed, and yeah, the bubble's actually a really big. It's still dead. Never mind. Like, the bubble's really good. Doesn't matter. Purify takes it off, and now without this big splash damage, Nate, how do you defend against this?
That's the neat part, is you really don't. All the bobs are pulled to repair, so yes, that keeps the central command in play, but that's the entire economy of that base, and economy has been a huge issue for this game. MaNa has a ton of resources to work with behind this. He can afford to trade a little more liberally, consider that how hard it's been for LucifroN to get across the map or even leave his own base in the last 2-3 games, and what MaNa did was kind of realize, all right, I just needed to pump the brakes a little bit sooner in this one once I got my little lead going and secure a better mid-game position with the Animancers, with the Cabals, with the Kree. And there we have an evac, and we have an Atlas, which can do a tremendous amount of repair, tremendous amount of defense. But again, every time he can at least force those bobs to be a part of the fight, he's dealing economic damage in a huge way. And it looks like the Buzzsaw is attacking the central command as well. I think he's trying to do that to bounce the shots to the other side.
Absolutely. That's kind of a cool trick you can do just to maximize your damage even when your turret's not in range. I love, by the way, what MaNa's been doing here with the smoke, just to make sure that it's hard to dive and find these spellcasters that are so important into the fight. But now LucifroN, his entire base is dead. The Dark Prophecy zoning everything out, and MaNa, he just built too much of a lead. LucifroN tried to go for this command post opening, this quick expand macro idea. Really cool. And it turns out MaNa had a build order counter for that on this map. Strike node, effectively a cannon rush on into the natural. LucifroN couldn't mine, couldn't do what he wanted to do. And the Doom of Celestials, people have been talking about how they're not as strong as the other two factions. Nate, that Celestial Doom seems like it might be a little bit overrated because it's going to be MaNa and Parting in our grand finals, best of 7 coming up after this series and after the show match.
Incredible.